Hello, welcome, and this is London Silver. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever the hell you are in this world. Just have a good time zone, and glad you're here. And let's just get on to this. Izuku POV, and sorry for any background noise. It's kind of noisy, even though it's kind of late at night, but you know. The horse then started to run, and I felt like I was about to fall, and I grabbed his shoulders and tried to keep balance. As I do, I look around me and see how fast we're actually going. And honestly, I'm surprised we're going this fast for a horse. After 20 minutes goes by and the horse stops, and I jump off, landing on my foot bad and possibly spraining him, but I had way too much adrenaline to care or feel it. Sir Technoblade then gets off the horse and looks at my foot and gives me, "You good?" look, with genuine concern. I nod and he shrugs it off, leading me to entrance of the site and entering. The halls were empty, only having occasional personnel and security guards here and there. And Sir Technoblade was at my side, and honestly, slightly overprotective, to say the least. But I wouldn't say that out loud, because honestly, I kinda liked the feeling of being protected by an older brother of sorts. But I wouldn't tell that to him anytime soon. We make it to the room where I see an office that has my name on it. It had a paper which stated, "Hello, Izuku Midoriya. We have set up a containment room for SCP-DR34M and a room for viewing and experimentations. You will be with scientist George Not Found and will come soon after you go to the room to meet with them." I sigh and say, "We have to go now, so yeah." He nods, and we go side by side, getting there to see a big room which has one wall which is one-sided glass with a desk and a mic set up for speaking, and chairs. I sit down and Technoblade says, "Why are we waiting?" I then say, "Oh, we're meeting up with scientist George Not Found." He nods and leans on the wall next to me while he plays with a knife in his hands, fiddling around with it and fidgeting with it. About 15 minutes pass when a man with brown eyes, a brown eye and a blue eye, with white goggles, a white coat, and with a sleepy look, but looks decently awake enough to do this. And he goes up to me and say, "Hi, I'm George Not Found, but you could just call me George. You are?" I perk up and say, "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya, but you just call me M." He hums in response and says, "Well, let's get this started." He then walks over to the mic and says, "Hey, Dream." SCP-DR34M in his human form and jolted up and was about to say something when our eyes met and stopped. I swear, he saw through that glass. But he then says, "Hello to you too, George. So what am I doing?" George then says, "You're going to be doing a few tests. That's it. I haven't read them yet, but you know." SCP-DR34M seems uncomfortably calm for me, to be honest, and giving me an uneasy feeling. How did he see through the glass? SCP-DR34M nods and stands up. I then notice the cuffs and chains around him look all too similar to the quirk-erasing cuffs, but this is a different reality. They could have similarities since they're not that off, but I won't say anything for right now. The containment door then opens with 3 D-classes coming out with knives, and we're pushed in by level 2 personnel, which are guards. George then lifts a paper to his eye and hesitates to say it, but says it anyway and says, charge at SCP-DR-34M and try to kill him. One of the D class then yells and loud enough to let everyone in there hear, "You mean this skinny guy? Ha! You sure this guy's an SCP? I've seen way worse." I chuckle at his ignorance and say, "Oh wow, this one's gonna be entertaining. At least some of them can." Techno then gives a small laugh/snort as well, and George giggles at the D class's stupidity. SCP, Dream? Yeah, that's what he called him, Dream. Laughed hysterically at the D class, and one of the other were nervous and stayed back, and the other one was unbothered by it. The D class, yelling, ran and tried to stab Dream, but then was stabbed in his stomach with a white claw. The D class started to violently cough up blood and try to stab Dream, but with no avail. But while trying to escape the claw in their stomach was making it worse. But then Dream turns his claw around in their stomach, and then retracting their claw and pulling their organs out, letting their inner blood spill on the floor and slowly fall to the floor as they watch as their organs spill on the floor, coating the floor with red liquid. The D class look up at Dream, who is now in his monstrous form, smiling ear to ear, and then grabs their almost dead head and crushes it, making their eyes pop out of their sockets and dropping to the floor. Dream then steps on it, making it pop and squish noises. Level 2 personnel then burst in, capturing Dream and bringing him to a different containment as the D class are escorted out. Level 1 personnel came in and started to clean up the room. My nerves were not calming down and were all tense. As I saw everything go down, the feeling of everything that happened to the D class was happening to me. The slight sting of my stomach where he stabbed the D class plagued my mind as I flinched at the sudden touch on my arm. As I whipped my head around to see Techno grabbing my shoulder, looking at me with a concerned look, looking down at my nails and my hands to see they were digging into my arms, making light cuts into my arms, which were drawing blood and running down my arms. I say a slow, "Oh," and try to wipe it off, but just smearing it more on my skin. I sigh and walk out for a second to get bandages and bandage myself up. I walk back in and George looks at me and says, "You okay? Are you feeling a bit sick? If that's not you can go. If that's not that's what's going on." I say, "Oh, it's fine, Sir George. I just needed some air real quick." He says okay and goes back to taking notes, and I sit back down. Technoblade looks at me with slightly more concerned look, but kept his cool and sighs. One of the level 2 personnel comes to me and gives me 2 files of 2 different SCPs and say they are on the same site as SCP-DR-34M, and I was requested to visit them. Oh great. Please be pleasant sentient beings. Please be at least pleasant sentient beings. I take the files and start reading. SCP-SL-1M3C1CL 3 files. SCP-SL-1MEC1CL3 is a humanoid green slime that takes the form of a human with brown hair and glasses. He says he is human, but is plainly obvious that he is not human, and seems to be very aware of everything, and everyone in the SCP Foundation and says things such as, "I've been around and saw it being built. How's the O5? I haven't seen them in a while. I wonder if my help was enough. I wonder how that lizard fellow is. He was mad at everything. I wonder if he has friends. Oh, right, the little girl. Silly me. I wonder how the doctor's doing nowadays. He must be still talking about that pestilence. I'm glad he cured me that one time." It unnerved the foundation of his knowledge, but his mindset was immature and childlike, or airheaded, as some may say. But any attempts to get more information out of him was stopped by SCP-QU4CK1TY. Would stop him and protect him from saying anything else about the SCPs before them and the SCPs that came with them. SCP-S1M3C1CL3 can turn into 20% of their body mass and still go to his full body mass in less than 15 seconds. He has information about every P on Site Redacted and Site Redacted, who came from another world/universe, and information about the SCPs that were here before their arrival. He has a close relationship with SCP-QU4CK1TY, which is why they share the same containment room. They came together and stayed together for their entire stay at the Foundation. SCP-S1MEC1CLE3 has a friendly relationship with SCP-SCHL4TT and has a good relationship with SCP-QU4CKITY. Limits their playdates as SCP-QU4CK1TY says it. Side note, SCP-SL1MEC1CL3 and SCP-999 like to have playdates. It is honestly adorable. End of notes. Oh, this SCP doesn't sound too bad. Techno lifted an eyebrow, and I guess he doesn't seem to know them. Great. We walked a long way to get to their containment, but in a separate room with one-sided glass. I walked in and saw two. Alright, he shares a containment with another SCP. Huh. I think I should read theirs before we go in. Oh wait, didn't they prefer a different name or something? Slimesicle before? And who's this? Quackity? It looks like it, but let's just read. SCP-QU4CK1TY is a 5'7" male of Mexican descent. With Mexican descent and has black hair and brown eyes. He has a scar on his face on the side of his mouth and has explained it was from a fight with SCP and Officer T3CHN0BL4D3 /Technoblade. He has feathered ears and giant wings, which are both yellow and gold, but are usually concealed. He seems to fly when bored and hover in air, usually calm and docile with a few Spanish profanities, but when threatened will summon an axe and will attack with bloodlust. His eyes will turn completely bloodshot, red, and will attack and will non-stop slash with its axe and be stained in blood. He has a sadistic side to himself that he doesn't let slip around almost anyone. But there was this very racist D-class who got it once. He was there for 2 days before SCP-QU4CK1TY executed him, or exterminated. He was engaged to SCP-S4P-N4P and researcher Carl, but something happened to separate them emotionally. He has a bond with SCP... Oh, it's Filza. Because of their bird-like appearance and seems to know each other already. He has bond with SCP... Oh, Slimecicle. And basically his emotional support SCP for almost everything. Side note, SCP Slimecicle and SCP-999 like to have playdates with SCP Quackities as supervision. The two slimes are to go adorable together and exchange adorably odd sounds as communication. They must be friends or something, and they seem nice. I go into the containment and say, "Hello, SCP-SL1M3C1CL3. I am researcher of the Foundation here. I'm a sort of new researcher here." The SCP looked at me a bit confused and said, "Well, hello, researcher Midoriya from... I actually don't know. But it's nice to meet you. Dap me up." Oh, God. I accidentally pulled my cord. Let me do that again. "Well, hello, researcher Midoriya. I actually don't know, but it's nice to meet you. Dap me up." I stopped for a second. How did the SCP know my name? Does he know the other SCPs and they told him? I compose myself and say, "Is there something else you would like to be called?" His eyes light up and say, "Charlie Slimecicle! Charlie Slimecicle!" Okay, that's cute, not gonna lie. I then say, "Well, it's nice to meet you, Charlie Slimecicle." Well, then, is there anything you know about the Foundation that is interesting? Slimecicle then says, "Apparently some members of the SMP are working for the Foundation and are classified SCPs." I say, "That's nice, Charlie, but what is the SMP? What is this SCP thing?" He then was about to say something when SCP or Quackity... No, I'm just going to call him by his SCP number. SCP-QU4CK1TY covered his mouth and says, "Quackity from Las Nevadas!" Quackity, SCP-QU4CK1TY then says, "Shush! Stop. Hi, I'm Quackly. Please don't call me by some random numbers with letters." Got it. Charlie then says, "Dap me up." Quackity then decks him in the face. That was funny. Okay, so this is the end. I know it may be not the longest video, but it's kind of late where I am, and I'm probably going to sleep soon. And I really wanted to get this out for you. So yeah. Bye. Whatever time zone you are, have a good one, and bye-bye.